There's the typical answers of like, well, what style of leadership, and is it a position, or is it just something that you do, that kind of thing. And I thought about it quite a bit, and I'm toying with this idea, and I kind of want to flesh it out with you today of like, what is a leader? Yeah, the word should is an interesting word. To me, should is more of like a push. Sometimes we need to be pushed, that there's places and times for that. But more often than not, this internal tension is more like, it's not should I be doing this, it's more like I feel called or drawn to do this. John owns a company here in Utah. He's got about 20 employees. He was an employee for 15 years of his life, and he was tired of building somebody else's empire. And he thought, man, if I'm building something for somebody else, why can't I do this for myself?
Today on the show, we have Jake Kennington. Jake Kennington is a structural engineer turned personal and professional coach. And look, for those of you who may be like, oh, everybody's a coach and why do we need a coach? I really hope that you can start to see that there's a lot of power in having someone that you bring into your life and they can help you see things that you can't see, or they can help you really take action that you've been wanting to take. We get into that a little bit in this episode with Jake. Jake is running his company, which is called Actively Human, and he's helping people to really look at running their life by design instead of by default. Give this one a listen. Definitely worth your time. Hope you enjoy. Welcome to the Everyday Leader Podcast. Leadership is a choice. Join me, Matt, and my co-hosts Drew and Tate each episode as we break down how to lead powerfully in your family, team, and organization. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Everyday Leader Podcast. Today, I have a special guest, Jake Kennington. Jake, thanks so much for being on the show. We're glad to have you.
Hey, Matt, glad to be on the show. I'm glad to be here and chat for a bit.
Yeah, so we're going to do this a little bit backwards because we can. I want to know, I don't know you super well. Like I know you from LinkedIn, and we've interacted on LinkedIn over the last little bit. And tell us about how you go from being a structural engineer to a professional coach. What does that look like? And what are you up to right now? How'd you get there?
Yeah, it's a great question. So a little bit of my backstory. I'm married. I've been married for 16 years now almost. I've got 4 kids, ages 2 to 11. And professionally, I'm a structural engineer. So I went to school at BYU for a few years and then transferred back to Fresno State, which is where me and my wife grew up in the Central Valley of California, and studied civil engineering and had an emphasis in structural. Worked for a firm in Fresno for over a decade, and then moved my family 3 years ago to Salt Lake, near Salt Lake City, south of there, about 30 minutes, in a city called Lehigh. And the reason we moved was because I enjoyed engineering and I enjoyed the people that I was working with. The pay was fine and I liked the projects. And so for me, for a long time, I was like, those were the 3 things. Like, if you enjoy the work and you enjoy the people and you are okay with the pay, then you made it, right? Like, at least externally, you would be looking at my life and
You're
going,
good.
man, Jake's doing really well, right? But inside there was this weird tension of like, I kept asking myself, like, is this it? Is this all I'm doing for the next 30 years? And so the first way to answer that was, well, let's go work somewhere else. I'd only worked at one firm. And so I thought, let's go work somewhere else and get more experience, be around different types of leaders, different types of jobs, different types of engineers, because the firm I was at, there was only 4 or 5 of us. And so I didn't feel comfortable working for the competition down the street because, again, I was in a good spot and I didn't want to leave and work for, a competitor. And so we said, well, where else is home? And my wife has lived a few times in Utah, and I had it well for college. And so we decided that was the spot. We got a job and we moved, and 2.5 years later, that itch came back, and I'm like, is this really it? And again, things were good. Things were pleasant. The pay was good. The work was good. But again, there's this internal tension that I was having about, is this it? And what's next? And what do the next 30 years of my life look like? And I always tell people that corporate America, and specifically engineering, is not the villain. At least it wasn't for me. What happened was life changed and I changed along the way. And with those changes, my priorities started to shift. And so when I got into engineering, when I was a kid in school, what seems like a lifetime ago, I valued different things because I was single, and then I got married, and then I had kids. And so now my priorities are drastically different. And so what I came to found was I hired a coach myself, and it's a mutual friend of ours, Richie Norton, wonderful dude. And Matt, I don't know if you remember this, but back in 2024, I think it was February, I have my notes here in my notebook. You went to an event that I went to, a live event with Mitch Whiting and Richie Norton,
Yeah. Okay.
and you spoke.
Yeah.
And that was you speaking, and the things that Richie and Mitch spoke about were transformational for me because it shifted how I saw myself and how I identified in my perception of like what I wanted from life. And so, yeah, I hired those guys as coaches, had a really great experience. And something funny that happens every once in a while is somebody hires a coach and they go, man, I want to do that.
Yeah.
Like I would love to coach other people because you just find meaning and purpose and like turning back and helping other people. And so that was what, almost 2 years ago now. And
Yeah. In February.
yeah, so I started my coaching business. I didn't know what I was doing, slowly started getting clients, and kind of the rest is history. But yeah, now I run a company called Actively Human. I still engineer a couple days a week, and I'm slowly pulling those hours back. But I run Actively Human, and the purpose there is to help established professionals step into their next chapter by design and not by default.
It's awesome. That's beautiful. I love that. Do you remember the Paul Evans story? Do you remember when Paul Evans came in and told the story about taking a seat at the table?
The crazy thing is, I didn't know as somebody in the group that all these other speakers were going to come, and
Well, I don't think
in
anyone
walks
knew.
Paul Evans, and I'm like, whoa, this guy's huge, and I loved that story. Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, I don't think that anyone knew that that was going to happen. Like Richard Paul Evans just came in and Richie's like, "Come on up." I have told that story hundreds of times in the last 2 years, and I think about it very frequently. I literally was thinking about it last night.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about just the power of taking your seat at the table. I'm gonna actually leave a cliffhanger for our listener, and I'm gonna go try to figure out how to get Richard Paul Evans on the show, and he can tell you the story on the
Oh,
show.
that'd be great. Yeah.
I'll work on that, and if you really want to know the story, call me or message me on LinkedIn, and I'll tell you the story. We're not going to take the time right now. This is Jake's time. So,
Sure.
anyways, that's awesome, man. Thanks for sharing that. And I had not remembered that connection. So that's awesome. All right, I have a question for you. You
Sure.
mentioned this internal tension. You
Mm-hmm.
mentioned, is this it? Like, is this really it? And I'd love to hear your take on how that landed or lands for you now, trying to hold both of like being grateful for, to your point, things are good, the pay, the job, the people, and there's got to be more. I've heard Ed Milet call it blissful dissatisfaction. I think there's I think of it as like abundance, that you can be grateful for everything that is and aware that so much more is possible. I want to know, like, how did that land for you, or how does that land now? Because I think a lot of people struggle with that, where it's like, well, just be grateful. Like, just be glad it could be, it could be worse. And yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. Let me share a story. So when I was living in California, we decided that we were going to move to Utah, because we had some family here, and it felt like maybe a second home to some degree. Although we knew very few people here, it was probably one of the places in the world that felt like a good fit. And so we said, we're going to move to Utah. Well, where do we work? And you reach out to your network and see if anybody knows anybody, and a friend of a friend is like, you should work for this company. And so I reach out to them. I get an interview. They fly me out. This is all while my wife is pregnant with our fourth child. Our kids are still in school. I told them in the email process of like, I'm happy to fly out, but I'm not taking a job for like several months. I'm just
Yeah.
trying to lay the groundwork, get to know people. And they're like, no, 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 come out. And so I go to this interview, we go to lunch. I spend several hours with these guys, and the CEO of the company is sitting there. His name's Dorian Adams, fantastic dude. And he looks at me, and similar to what I just told you, Matt, where I was like, I like where I work, I like the money I make, and I like the things that I'm doing and the people. He goes, well, why in the world are you looking for another job then?
Yeah.
And the only thing I could come up with was, I'm looking for more. You mentioned this idea of more. And he says, more what? And I said, I have no idea. And I felt like that was, not the right thing to say in the moment because I'm trying to get this job, but it was the honest truth. It's like I could, and I tried to spit off a few things of like, well, more people to work with and different types of projects, like I mentioned earlier, and that kind of thing. But I really I hadn't pinpointed what more was yet. Long story short, got the job somehow, moved my family to Utah, and I'm still having this internal struggle with like wanting more, but trying to be grateful for what I have and what's brought me to this point, the people around me, and all those great things, all those fortunate blessings that I have. So you nailed it on the head. That's a struggle that I think most people have, including myself. And what I've learned in the last couple of years is that gratitude and ambition are not enemies.
Mm-hmm.
To me, they're two sides of the same coin. They actually balance each other, because if you have too much of a good thing, it actually becomes a bad thing. So too much gratitude, as funny as that sounds,
It'd be
too
like
much
complacent.
gratitude, yeah, it becomes complacency, right?
Wow.
That's exactly right. Too much ambition without the gratitude becomes all about the money and the things and the achievements, and then we know that's not good as well, right? And so to actually have more of one, you need more of the other. And so two sides of the same coin, and I've kind of realized that it's like be as ambitious as I can be, but have a whole lot of gratitude along the way, right? And pay it forward and help other people. So those are my thoughts.
That's so good. Yeah, there's a big O and in there. I love what you just said, though. I'm like thinking through that to have more of one, you want to have more of the other.
Mm-hmm.
So it's both. Have a lot of intentional gratitude and have a lot of ambition. That's beautiful. Those are not enemies. That's so good. What a great takeaway for everyone, that those two are not mutually exclusive and they're not enemies. Wow.
Yeah. I'll add one more thing. I think the most selfish thing we can do is live a life of mediocrity.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think we have to follow our ambitions, but not in a self-serving way, not a selfish way. We follow our ambitions so that we can give and serve and help and lift. We fill our cups so we could fill other people's cups, right? And
Yeah.
so, again, I was kind of living this mediocre or complacent life for a while, where life was good and life was great, but I was just kind of like taking that talent or that treasure, or whatever you want to call it, and burying it in the backyard, right? And being like, I'm going to keep this safe. I'm just going to keep safe what I have. And we all
Yeah.
know the parable of the talents, right? It's like, no, you have to go out and use those things. You have to grow it. The only way you can help other people is by growing, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's so good. I want to make sure that our listener understands the distinction here, that this is like, because I often find myself telling people, and I want to hear your thoughts on this too, that it's like it's it's not a comparison thing. Like, I don't care, or and no one cares like what job you have, or if you have a job, or if you're an entrepreneur, or if you're not. That's not the point. I think it's like, what do you feel, what you were sharing, Jake, right? Around, do you feel this like unsettled, like, what else is there? And do you ignore it? I think that's the key. Like, it's not about, oh, you should be doing X, Y, or Z, or you should be at this level. It's just, to me, it's like, I don't want people to lie to themselves, or like hide from what this thing is that's trying to call at them or gnaw at them. And so would love your thoughts on that. Like, how do you see that?
Yeah, the word should is an interesting word. To me, should is more of like a push, if I can use an analogy there. It's like you grin and bear it, and use your, motivation or your willpower to like do something that you think you should be doing. And I think what we're talking about is more of a pull, which is like something that draws you to it and you feel like you want to do it. It could be challenging. In fact, it should be challenging and it should be hard, whether that's work or your family or being involved in your community or whatever it is that you're working on. We're pulled to that. We're drawn to it. We're called to it, and we kind of accept the calling or the ask there. And I
Yeah.
think it's a little bit different. I think sometimes we need to be pushed, that there's places and times for that. But more often than not, this internal tension is more like, it's not, should I be doing this? It's more like, I feel called or drawn to do this.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so good. I want everyone listening to be clear on that, though, that this is not about something that you should be doing, to your point. It's about, if that's occurring to you, this
Hmm.
unsettling, this, is there more? We invite you collectively here, Jake and I, to go take action on that, and don't try to
Yeah.
ignore that. And if you love your job and you love your situation and it's stretching you and you're great. Like, awesome. There's nothing that you ought to go look for just because we're talking about this is how it happened for us. So, and yeah, if that is calling to you as you listen to this, go take action on it, and you'll be thrilled to see what's on the other side. So, thanks for sharing that, Jake. It's a great story. I love the pick up and move type of stories. And again, it doesn't have to be that, and that's awesome. Like, it's scary, it's challenging, it's new, it's uncomfortable. So it's really inspiring.
Yeah, it's all those things and more. And it's a search, right? I tell people that when you're trying to build the life that you want, we learned a long time ago, I think it was, junior high or high school math class, that the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line, right? But what I've learned in life is that it's never a straight line
Yeah.
between where you are and where you want to go, or the person you are and the person you want to become. We'd love to be up and to the right all the time, right? But there's a zig and a zag and a family move. And well, maybe that job wasn't the right one, but it was at the time. And, we're constantly changing and life is changing. And so just for your listeners and for me, kind of talking to myself here, just be patient with yourself, show yourself a little bit of grace and take action. Make that your default, is like take action. And it's going to be 2 steps forward, 1 step back sometimes, but the progress, the trend of the progress will be positive.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about leadership.
Sure.
Obviously, it's the name of our show. It's the thing that we love to talk about. Also see that there's a lot of different perceptions or understandings of what leadership is or is not, and we don't pretend like we have the only one or the best right answer, and that's why we ask everyone, what's leadership to you? So we'd love to hear your thoughts on leadership in general and how you view leadership, whether that's through the lens of like your own leadership or how you view it externally. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's a loaded question, and I kind of anticipated this. I was at the gym, I think it was yesterday, and I knew I was coming on the show today, and I thought, I'll listen to an episode or two while I'm at the gym and see what kind of questions Matt asks, and so I could be a little bit prepared. And I heard you ask somebody else the same question. I'm assuming you asked most of your guests this. And so obviously there's the typical answers of like, well, what style of leadership, and is it a position or is it just something that you do, that kind of thing. And I thought about it quite a bit, and I'm toying with this idea, and I kind of want to flesh it out with you today of like, what is a leader? And I think one way to describe leadership or a leader is that our leaders are our heroes.
Mm,
And if you phrase it that way, if you go like, who are your heroes? You start to think of like people that you aspire to be, people that have character traits that you admire and you want to have in your own life, right? And I think those people are leaders because, again, there's this pull to be like them. It's not like I should be like Matt. It's, man, I want to be like Matt because he does A, B, C, or X, Y, Z, right? And so I wrote down something on my phone. And I want to share this real quick about, leaders and heroes. A leader is a hero that's now a guide. So I think of like the hero's journey, right? And you think of
yeah,
any big movie like Star Wars and Luke Skywalker and Yoda, or you think of like Lord of the Rings and what's the guy's name? Frodo and Gandalf. The leader in that story, you could argue, is the main character, but really that's the hero. That's the story arc, is like that person, the journey that they go on. But the leader in that story is usually the guide, the person that's been through something difficult and had some lived experience. And now they're turning back to help someone else on their own journey.
yeah,
And so I think that's kind of more of a broad view of like what a leader is. It's like they've done something and they've gained some wisdom, and now they're taking their time and their effort to like turn around and help somebody else through a similar situation.
yeah, yeah. That's awesome. I think of the word preside means to like go before, and I think
Hmm.
that's closely related with what you're saying, right? Like they've gone before, they've like understood the path, they've created a path, or they
Yeah.
have insight to the path. What would you say, just authentically, to someone who's listening to this that's like 20 years old, that in their mind they're like, well, I haven't done anything. Like I can't be a leader because I haven't like accomplished X, Y, or Z or got to the top of the mountain. What would you say to them?
Yeah, I think that's what we all think, right? We're like, "Oh
Yeah.
man, I'm not very experienced, and what do I have to offer?" Is like the question, like, "What do I have to offer?" I don't think you have to have gone through the same exact experience as somebody else to be able to help. You can go through kind of a parallel or similar experience, and I think even at a young age, you can be helpful. So I have little kids, right? And my two sons are 11 and 8. And the argument you're making is that like the 8-year-old could never help the 11-year-old because he's behind by 3 years, right? Like he hasn't been through the same
Yeah,
grades, he hasn't
someone
been
might
through
be
the same
wondering that.
things. Yeah, someone might be wondering that. And I think to some extent that may be true because my 11-year-old son Harvey has just been through more things. He's seen more things. But Nash, my 8-year-old, he has his own lived experience and he can chime in and help Harvey in different ways. And I see that all the time. I see my kids kind of help each other out. Even the youngest one, the 2-year-old, oftentimes just with a smile or whatever she does, lifts and helps and protects and serves, right? And so although experience is paramount, it's important. We can't cut ourselves short. We all have some sort of experience and wisdom to offer. And what's funny is you think like you pitched it as like a 20-year-old that maybe is getting into the workforce and feels that way. Well, I turned 40 in February this year, and I still feel that way when I
Yeah.
get around people that are more senior to me. You're like, "Oh, what do I know? What do I have to offer?" And the answer is you have a lot to offer. Everybody has a lot of experience in different ways. And we do both. Like we're the hero at some parts of our life, even within a single day. And then sometimes the script gets flipped and we're the guide,
We're the guys.
right?
Yeah.
And so we wear both hats kind of interchangeably depending on the people that we're surrounded by. But I don't think we should shy away from sharing our lived experience and trying to help other people along the way.
Yeah. 100%. That's awesome. Okay. Well, what can you tell us about the work that you do and what you've learned? I mean, obviously, based on your story, this is a different type of daily engagement than structural engineering to some degree. Tell us a little bit about what you've learning and the work that you're currently engaged in and what you see it creating.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. It is very different. And so what I've been doing for the last 2 years is one-on-one coaching with individuals, mostly around personal development. Again, trying to help them step into whatever their next chapter is by design and not by default. And so a lot of people similar to me, not necessarily wanting to leave their profession. Sometimes it's just finding another job within their profession. Sometimes it's moving to a different department. Sometimes it's just a lot of internal work about like, well, how do I view this role and how do I become more engaged so that I'm fulfilled in the work that I'm doing? And that doesn't oftentimes mean that they have to leave or quit or do anything like that, right? It's just more of a perspective that they have on the work that they're engaged in. And so for the last 2 years, I've been doing that one-on-one with individuals. It's been incredibly fulfilling on my end. It's been helpful for them. And this year, I'm excited to launch a group coaching program. It would be a small group of 10 to 12 people. I'll do it once a quarter. We're calling it the second summit. This idea that the first, half of your life, or maybe the first 2 decades or 3 decades of your life, we all are guilty of this, and there's no judgment. It's actually not a bad thing. It's just a natural pattern that we go to college, we get a job, we make a name for ourselves, we chase the promotion, we try to really establish our reputation. And again, not a bad thing. We all do it. But some of us get to a point where we're mid 30s or 40s and we look around and we go, man, this isn't as satisfying as I thought it would be. And we don't know what to do next. We start asking these questions like, is this it? And what's next? And it's really frustrating. And so I like to work with those individuals that externally have been somewhat successful in their careers, but they just aren't quite satisfied with like the life that they've built. And so in March, we're launching this group cohort. Super excited about it. And yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now with coaching. I've learned a lot about myself. I've been able to help a lot of different people. I've spoken at several conferences, which for me, I'm not like a natural public speaker. I'd much rather do this one-on-one with you, Matt, than
Yeah.
stand in front of 200 people on a stage sweating and having everything show. But those have been learning experiences for me and challenging things that, the reason I do it is because I get to connect with so many individuals afterwards. And that's been really fulfilling. So yeah, the future's bright, and I'm excited for the group program that launches in just about a month and a half from now.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Can you think of one particular client? Obviously, you don't need to share their name.
Sure.
What's your most one of your most favorite experiences, or most like impactful, or just what stands out to you when you think back since you've been engaged in helping people in this way? Do you have like one story or one example that stands out that was just really special, really meaningful to you that you'd be willing to share?
Yeah, and I'll try to make it quick, but in our program we use a framework called REDAC, which is REDAC. It stands for Redefine, Realign, and Reconnect. So redefine what success means for you, and that's more of the head or the strategy, right? And we spend a lot of time doing that. I think it's important. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, you have this definition of success. Now you have to go like do the thing. Like the
Yeah.
default is action, right? Align your life with what you say is important. And then the last part, which is a bit surprising, is kind of a byproduct of that process, is that people connect more deeply with, sure, their coworkers and the people around them, but really like the most important relationships, which is like their family and their kids and their spouses. And so that's the framework. And the reason I mention that is because the really difficult problem, the thing that stands out the most with the clients I work with, is the transition from redefine to realign, right?
Mm,
They have this definition, they can write it down, we work through it. That's not easy either. But all of a sudden, when you get to the action part, it's difficult because we oftentimes know what we need to do and then we don't do it, right? We're all guilty of that. It's like the easiest example is, I want to be healthier and lose some weight. And it's like, well, we know you just eat better and exercise more, right? Like
yeah.
we know how to do it and then we don't do it. And so the question becomes why? Like why is there a disconnect between the how and the actual doing? And so I'll share a quick example of a client of mine. We'll call him John, like you said, for privacy reasons, but John owns a company here in Utah. He's got about 20 employees. He was an employee for 15 years of his life, and he was tired of building somebody else's empire. And he thought, man, if I'm building something for somebody else, why can't I do this for myself? Which I think most entrepreneurs kind of empathize with that. We go, man, I could really build my own thing here. So he breaks off 4 years ago, starts his own company. He's got almost 20 employees. They're making a lot of money. They have repeat business. They're doing really well. Again, from the outside looking in, you'd go, John, you're doing really good. You're killing it. But then he calls me and he says, I need your help. I'm working 70+ hour weeks. And I used to have 5 kids and a wife. I don't see them anymore. And I want to, and I need help. And the first time we spoke, he said, I need to learn to delegate better to my employees and trust them. And you take that at face value and you go, okay, that makes sense. Obviously, like you're probably doing all the work or most of the work and trying to lead the work, be the leader, and you can't do both. So you need to delegate and you need to trust. And again, he's telling me this. He knows what he needs to do,
Right.
but he struggles with the implementation. And this is what I think. This is why. James Clear, I'm sure you've read this book. I'm sure all your listeners have heard of it or not listened to it or read it. He wrote a book called Atomic Habits, right? Very well read, very awesome book. I've read it multiple times myself. And obviously it's about habits, but in there, he also talks about something called identity. And he said that true behavior change is identity change. So again, going back to the example of the gym, it's like, I want to lose weight, so I'm going to go to the gym. That's the wrong way to think about it for long-term lasting change. If we want behavior change, we have to start with identity, not with outcomes.
Yeah.
So I want to be a healthy person, therefore I'll go to the gym and then I'll lose weight, as opposed to I want to lose weight, I'll go to the gym.
And then I'll be a healthy person.
And then I'll be a healthy person. Yeah, it's so funny because it's 3 dots. It's really simple, but the direction matters, right? And
Yeah.
so start with identity. And John, my client, it wasn't really a matter of I need help delegating or trusting my employees. He hired these people because they're good workers, right? They do good work. He already trusts them. He can delegate to them, but why is he not doing it? And it's because he hadn't quite shifted his identity from individual contributor to leader,
Yeah.
right? To business owner, to operator to president, he had to shed the old skin of like, I do everything. And he had to step into, as opposed to doing all the work, I'm going to work through other people and lead the work. And that's, I'll say that it's difficult. It's difficult not to do that, but to adopt this new identity, because there's a little bit of like loss and grief and pain with leaving an old version of ourselves behind, because we've done it for so long and we're actually good at it, right?
And it was like fulfilling to some degree and
And it
created
is
value.
fulfilling. And he still wants to do some of the work, but it's picking the right work, right? Picking the right clients, picking how he shows up to do he's an engineer as well. So how he was going to do engineering and not shed everything completely, but enough that he could step into this other role and have this new identity. And so he was amazing to work with. One of the first things we did was his cell phone number is the number to the company.
No way.
So when a client calls, guess who answers the phone?
No way.
No way,
Why?
right? And so the first thing we did is like, you got to get that off your phone, like have somebody else answer the phone. And it's not because he's going to be this slave driver and dish out all these responsibilities and be like, Matt, now it's your job to answer the phone. It's because he needs to empower his employees to do the things that they need to do, and he's going to do the things that he needs to do. And then he took a day off. I made him take a day off. He hadn't taken a day off in almost 4 years. And then he took 2 days off. And on those days off, it's like, spend time with your family, do what's important, go golfing. I don't care. Just don't pick up the computer and don't pick up your phone.
Yeah.
And guess what? The business will be there when you get back, like you can trust these people and delegate. But again, it goes back to identity and how he viewed himself and allowing him to let go of a previous version for a better version, right?
Yeah. That's awesome. Okay, so redac. Remind me what the C is, the last C.
Reconnect.
Reconnect. Okay. Yeah, that's awesome. It's so funny that you bring this up because I've asked this question multiple times because we were talking about this on an episode we did without a guest a few weeks ago, and another recording I did this week. I was asking him, and so it's interesting that you bring up the space between redefine and realign. It's like when just do it doesn't work. It's because to your point. It's like we all know like what to do, and we don't do it. And so I love that you went to identity because 100% in my experience, that's what, right? Like I've heard it said that that's more of like focusing on the heart,
Mm-hmm.
and then your behaviors can shift after that. Whereas a focus on behavior is not going to shift your heart. It's not going to shift your
100%.
identity. So yeah, that's great. I love that. Thanks for sharing. Okay, well, where can people find you if they want to engage further, or anything else that you want to share, like with our audience?
Yeah, for sure. So my website is activelyhuman, and they can go there to learn more about me and what I do. I have a free resource there I'd love to share with your listeners called the Own Your Life Playbook. So there's 3 really practical, actionable steps that they can take, again, to like step into this next chapter by design and not by default. And they can get that at activelyhuman.com/playbook. Free resource, costs absolutely nothing. You just put your name and your email in there, and then I can connect with you afterwards as well. Would love for them to have access to that. And then if they ever want to reach out to me directly, I'm on LinkedIn. So just look for Jake Kennington, and you'll see Actively Human all over the place, and you'll know it's me. So yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's awesome. A friend and mentor of mine often talks about the difference between playing just to play,
Mm,
not to lose, or playing to win. That all 3 of those are very different. And so I love this idea of having a playbook for your life, and not that like every minute's scripted out, right? Like a football game, like I'm gonna run.
no,
It's a beautiful thing to be like, to feel intentional around like I am living my life by design instead of default, and I'm playing to win my life instead of just, I'm just here. So I love that. Encourage everyone to take advantage of that and give it a look. I'll also be checking it out too for sure. So
I
it's
love
awesome.
that. Can I share one more thing?
Yeah.
You sparked something. One of my personal definitions of success. I have a bunch of them written on the wall. I read a lot. I listen to podcasts like this, and every once in a while I hear something. I go, that speaks to me. And one of my personal definitions of success, speaking about playing games and how we play them, is that success is uh, wanting to keep playing the game,
Mm,
playing in a way that you want to keep playing, right?
yeah.
And so that's very applicable to business. That's applicable to fatherhood. That's applicable to anything, like how we show up. It's more of a lens or a perspective of like, how do I do this so that I want to keep doing it? And
I love
so call that a win, maybe. I don't know what you want to call it, but really it's not about winning or losing or dominating or anything like that. It's more like, how do I do this to keep doing it?
Yeah, like I'm still engaged in playing the game, and that's a great
Yeah.
sign of success. I love that. That's
Yeah.
beautiful. Yep, life and leadership, it's a mountain with ups and downs. There's no arrival at the top, and so I love that perspective. All right, well, thanks so much for being on, Jake. It's been great. I appreciate your insights and the stories and experiences that you shared, and I know that it's been a benefit to our listeners. So thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate you having me on the show. And yeah, see you soon.
Okay, well, to our listener, leadership is a choice, and today is the day. Thanks for joining us on the Everyday Leader podcast. If you're ready to take your leadership journey even further, subscribe to our weekly newsletter for more insights and practical tips. And don't forget to connect with us on Instagram to stay a part of our growing community. Just follow the links in the show notes. If this episode impacted you, please help us spread the word and share the link with a friend from wherever you're listening.